Hello, here you can see my first 90 days of game development, but today I'll just talk about the first 14 days. I am a software engineer with 5 years of experience, all of them invested in backend development. And Roadside Colonies VR is a project that I started after playing a lot of the forest and into a radius. Then I started engaging with the idea of developing my own game. I wanted to see materialize the mix between those two games in virtual reality. The survival aspects, the inventory, items, and background story of Into the Radius, and the cave surface duality and building systems of the forest. So I got determined to start working on it. I opened Google Docs and started making notes, and such a document is right now at 146 pages in length, where I have documented my advances on a daily basis. Now I'll start narrating my journey developing for the Quest Pro and the Quest 3 headsets. Days 0 to 7, from conceptualization to a roadmap. The first thing I did was to list my references, to define some guide questions and the first set of tasks to complete. Then I just started rambling about the kind of game that I had in mind, and a tentative background story. I tried to describe the game loop, the atmosphere of the game, and any other detail that I could consider interesting at the moment. But most of the notes came from excitement. The idea was to evaluate how hard it would be to implement the ideal version of my game and to refine the scope iteratively from that point. Things like bot storylines, procedural map generation, and asynchronous multiplayer were discarded. But the spirit of the text still serves as a compass for decision making. Considering I have no art, modeling, or animation skills, I decided to focus on my strengths, the capability of just making things work. At that moment, I was clear on the list of features I wanted to implement. Let me show you the roadmap at that point. Actually, this is not a proper roadmap. This is more like a list of features to implement, or better, it is a development route. Let's just go through the diagram. My first objective was to receive commands from the controllers, to walk, run, and crouch. And in second place, to implement the hands, the primary way to interact with any virtual environment. All related with essential items and hand functionality. But once completing these bases, the next thing to do was the inventory. Basically, is the capability to bring with you more than 2 items, one by hand. And I was considering just the industry standard, the backpack and the belt, just like Into the Radius and many other games. This other side that is subordinated with the inventory are basically the non-essential items, artifacts, energy system, wearables, the clock, are things that enrich the game loop, but that are not a requirement to progress or to enable the game loop. So my expectation was to start working right after the inventory on the enemies, the outside map design and development, and the building system. And maybe during this period of time, I could take some attention to optimization work, like the tide system of the fog effect, things related with rendering, occlusion, cooling, that at this moment I know, but when I wrote the roadmap, I didn't know about those things. And at the end, I had to start implementing those measures, even since I started working on the essential items. But well, my idea was to work first in the outside map and then in the interior map, and beyond that, the save system. And as you can see, this is not a proper roadmap because I'm not considering milestones like the demonstration or making the tutorial or completing certain chapters of the campaign. I'm just tracing a line to follow in my future research and development work, because at this point I just had too much uncertainty. Days 8 to 14, Blender and Unity research. I started looking for introductory videos for topics like modeling, materials, texturing, rigging, animation, etc. In those videos, I learned about UV mapping for texturing, I rigged a couple of cubes, and I modeled a chest. The concepts were not too complex, but using Blender's interface felt like the most unnatural thing. It is like using a new limb. I'll leave on screen the list of tutorials that I went through during this research exercise. About Unity, I started looking at the concepts of game objects, quaternions, the game loop design pattern. I tried to interiorize the scripting paradigm. That's something that is still a work in progress even now. And I got started with the guidelines published in the meta development site in order to set up my project. But in the end, I couldn't set up the newest version of the interaction SDK, so I just went with the baseline of an experiment I did with Unity several years ago. I found sites to get models from. One of them is Fab and the other is Free3D. About sounds, I found Pixabay. And for animation, I know about the existence of Mixamo, but I haven't used it. And with that, my initial research and planning is completed. I was ready to start with actual development. That's something that I'm going to cover in following videos. So if this sounds interesting for you, give a like, subscribe, check my Reddit if you want, and let me know about how it was for you to start developing games, or if you're interested in developing one.